Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Live Questions and Answers with me, Scott Wilkinson. I'm a professional body piercer, and I have been since 1994. Now, over on the other side, reading all your questions, we have Jared. So everyone say hello to Jared.
Hello, everybody. I'm glad that you're here. Monica Iwa Peterson. Hi, Scott and Jared. All the best in 2023. Hope your wonderful channel continues to grow. Thank you, Monica. That's awesome. We really appreciate that.
Wonderful little wish there. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you.
That's great.
Thank you.
Because we are trying to grow right now. We're so close to 100,000. We can almost taste it.
And I don't know if you guys know this or not, but coming up on the first or the second, actually, I believe will be our 3-year anniversary that we started posting.
Yes.
3 years now. God, it went so quick.
It did.
It's been a lot of fun, too. A lot of, I didn't expect it to go this far.
Right.
Well, I thought it'd be fun to do it for a while and run out of some content and be like, yeah, that was a fun little run. And no, this is
something
really
that everyone's really enjoying, and we're glad that you guys are here.
Yeah.
So, why are we here, Scott? What do we do when we're here?
We ask questions. No, we don't ask questions. I answer them. If you guys have questions about piercings, things like that, make sure you give us a real thorough question. And I'm going to do my best to answer those as best as I can. We try to get to everyone, so the sooner you ask the question, the better the chance of getting to the top. And the other thing is there's always that super chat. If we see a super chat come in here, a little donation, you jump right to the front of the line. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's start with a common question that we often get. If I have a bump on a piercing, what does it mean and what can I do about it? Like I have a nostril piercing, for example. So I have a nostril piercing and it develops a bump.
Well, it's a really good question. Just in general, if you have a bump, don't freak out. Okay. Number one, everyone freaks out. You got to put chemicals. You got to put things on there. You got to fix this bump. Your body's reacting to the piercing, and you probably caught it on something, hit it on something changed, maybe a different fabric softener, different soap. And the body's reacting. It's telling us you got to figure out what the problem is. And once you stop it, the bump just goes away. It's really, really that simple. But if you keep picking at it, popping it, putting chemicals and things on there, it makes the situation worse. So if you don't know, don't start guessing, creating some crazy chemistry experiment. Talk to your piercer and see if you can kind of narrow it down to the actual problem.
Very cool. Because a lot of people overtreat. They freak out and start doing stuff.
Yeah.
And
our body's super tough, super resilient, and can heal a lot of these piercings no problem. So we need to let it.
S says hi, and Annalise Gray says hi, guys. Happy holidays. Man. Thank you very much. We're glad you're here. Violet says hi, guys. Hope you're all having a great day. I got my eyebrow piercing yesterday, and I love it so much. That's awesome.
Congratulations. I love getting my eyebrow pierced. I've had them done like a dozen times on each side. I take them out and just immediately miss it. So I always feel back to normal when I have my eyebrows pierced.
Our next question is going to come from Mumu. And Mumu says, hi, do ears stretch on their own? One ear has been itching. So, like, is that something that happens? Is one ear just going to kind of stretch by itself?
You know what? We just put out a video on that.
We did.
I know you know that because you helped edit it. But anyways, edited it.
I edited it.
Yeah. But anyways, basically what that video kind of comes down to is you probably sleep on one side, you lean on one side more, and it's more likely to stretch. So one side does stretch better than the other. Some people have naturally more stretchy ears. So some people can stretch up no problem. Some people have to really work at it. So everyone's different.
Excellent. Our next question says, love you, Scott.
Love you too.
The problem we're having here is trying to find the correct length of bar for a central labret. So they're going back and forth between too long of a bar, which is moving back and forth and creating a bump, or too short of a bar where the lip seems to swell a little bit and it hurts. They have a hard time finding that length. Do you have any recommendations? How would we know?
Yes. Okay. There is the right length, but there's also the right disc size. The disc that goes on the inside of your lips, sometimes you'll get them in 5 millimeters, 4 millimeters, 3 millimeters. I've seen them down to 2.5. 2.5 millimeters is probably too small, but sometimes, I don't know, you get the right length, but that small disc is just sucking in. So maybe you need to go to a larger disc or a smaller disc in one of those sizes. So if the one seems like it's just a little bit too short, put a bigger disc on there and it won't suck into your lip as much and it might sit absolutely perfect for you. Also look at the sizes. If you're doing between a 7 and a 9 millimeter, see if you can find that 8 millimeter.
That was the question I was going to ask is,
sometimes
do all piercers have the same sizes or is it possible there would be an in-between size that maybe is just not available wherever?
You got to look online because a lot of times there is in between sizes. There's a lot of like stuff we just don't stock. It's really weird sizes.
Uncommon,
and it's just uncommon, but they do exist. So you just might need to seek it out. I don't know the exact length that you're actually going for, but there might be an in-between size. And if not, maybe change up the top so it doesn't sink into your lip in the front or the disc size in the back. That can help too.
We
Good
have
question.
an excellent question up next from S.
Bring it on.
S would like to know if a dusty environment can affect a piercing, like cause bumps, for example, on a nostril piercing if you work or in an environment like that.
100%. Environment is such a huge important for the healing process. Same thing like if you work in a chemical factory and there's like airborne stuff that can kind of get in there. Now these are technically open wounds and your body's getting crusties on there. Well, when those crusties first come out, they're not dry crusties, they're wet, so they can kind of attract some of that dust to kind of get in there and keep it extra dirty, extra irritated. So
can you think of any kind of a tip? Like what could we do to avoid this? Say we have to work in this environment.
you don't touch your piercing during work.
Okay.
You don't touch it. You try to leave it be. And as soon as you get home, make sure you do a thorough saline wound wash spray.
Just
really, really clean it well and do your best to get stuff out of there. Your body should expel and kind of repel most of those dust particles out, but you do need to do your best to keep them off there. If you can wear a mask, that's ultimately, I would imagine.
You can kind of avoid some stuff from it or a Band-Aid over the actual location of the piercing.
As long as the sticky adhesive doesn't get on the jewelry or inside the piercing, because that adhesive causes a lot of issues.
It'll do the same thing. It'll attract the dust.
Exactly. So
very cool. So hopefully that helps S. Emily Sakuma says, after getting a septral piercing, what do you put in the septum to keep it open while the septral heals?
That's the part that kind of sucks. You're going to lose some size. Well, like I said, we started. Okay, first of all, let me explain a septral to the people who don't know. A septral is where you have a septum piercing and you stretch it up to a large size, like maybe a 2 gauge or even a 0 gauge, and then you pierce from the front or the tip of your nose into the septum piercing. And you're going to wear a labret where it has a flat disc on the back and some sort of gem or ball or disc on the front. Now, the thing is once you stretch up to the 0, we need a big enough to put the receiving tube to pierce into that, just so we have the room to do it. Once you have that disc in there, that's smaller. So that means your septum is going to shrink up a little bit. Sometimes you might lose 2 or 3 sizes, but the good news is they generally stretch back up fairly easily. My manager at my shop has a septral, and she was able to stretch things back up by stacking jewelry. This worked really, really well for her. Just keep adding a couple more rings here and there until she was back up to that size, and she's beyond that at this point. Now, one thing I do want to say is with septral, sometimes with stacking, jewelry can kind of sit kind of funny, which can kind of push the septral off to the side. Sometimes it looks perfectly straight, sometimes it looks off to, depending on the style of jewelry you actually wear. Might actually be a pincher that causes it to look more crooked than the other one. I don't know. But anyways, you will lose size. You just got to re-stretch it back up.
Becky says hello. And Moo clarifies one of those very first questions that when you pull on that ear, it seems to have stretched larger than the other side. And you were saying that that's just because it takes more natural abuse during your sleep.
Exactly. You probably sleep on that one side, so it's getting pulled and tugged on. And that's just how it is. It also could be the angle of the piercing. If it's more perpendicular, there's less tissue there. If the other one's pierced at an angle and this one's straight through, there's less tissue to actually stretch, so it will stretch naturally easier too.
All right. We have a super chat for $5 from Luna de Blue. Thank you very much. And Luna's question is, I have had an eyebrow piercing since April and it's healed now, but it still gets dried and the skin attaches to the bar. Would it be okay to put lotion on it?
Probably within reason. In a situation like this, I'm going to say you need to listen to your body. First of all, I'm going to say you're going to want to use a lotion that doesn't have perfumes or fragrances because you don't want that stuff going inside the body. Something as natural as possible. And try it a little bit at a time. If you're fully healed up, you can put it on there. And if it starts acting up, you need to back off. That's what I mean by listen to your body. You're healed up enough. It's just,
Now explain skin attaches to the bar to me. What do you mean? What do you think that means?
The first thing I'm thinking about is like when you get a new piercing, sometimes it almost sticks and you almost have to kind of break it to kind of get it free a little bit.
It adheres to the actual jewelry.
Sticks or it's kind of hard that way. Sometimes you're going to get a little crusties for a long, long time, and that crusty can act like a little rubber cement against the skin, I'm guessing.
Okay.
So if things are drying out because of the dried skin and the crusties, lotion can help a little bit. Emu oil could also help a little bit. But again, if it's irritated and it's not fully healed up, it will let you know, and that's going to be a problem. And that could be why you still have the crusties too.
Could it have anything to do with like the polish on the jewelry a little bit? Like would a more polished surface stick less?
You're pretty smart. You know that?
I'm trying. That's what I think. That's why I'm here, really.
Yeah. That's pretty good. Yeah, absolutely. I can't believe I didn't think about that. But Jared is absolutely right here. The polish on there, if you have some low quality jewelry and it's super, super porous, your body's just kind of grabbing all those little pores and it's not allowing it to move, keeping it irritated, keeping the crusties happen. Something more smooth is not going to stick the same way. So very good point.
Either upgrade the jewelry or even like if you have it out sometime to clean it or something, like giving it a little light polish yourself couldn't hurt, I would imagine.
If you had a jewelry polishing cloth, you could, but the longer you have your jewelry out, those things close quick. So you don't really have that much time to take it out and play with a polisher and try to do, unless you had other jewelry to put in there to hold it open during that
in the meantime.
Yeah.
All right, yep. Luna. So hopefully that quits happening for you. That does not sound like a fun
But
problem.
Again, if you're using lotion, use common sense. If it stings, burns, or hurts, stop.
Sometimes it's just that simple.
Yep.
Lol wants to know if it's possible to fix a crooked lobe piercing. So say we have two lobes and they're off from one another. Can I do anything?
Really, really tough question because it depends on how off it is. Is it just the angle or did they miss the spot entirely?
Now explain that. What do you mean by the angle? Like it's just had to be in the middle of the lobe, right?
Okay. So I'm going to hold up an ear here. God, these ears are so fun. I'm glad we made these.
I know. It was a lot of work.
So like normally, okay, we'll say this is the center of the ear. This is where the piercing needs to go. But one ear it's here and the other ear it's over here. Okay. So then we can just take it out and re-pierce it so it's in the proper spot, but you're going to have that little scar over here. Now, the other thing is, you see how like this pen looks straight at you? It's perfectly perpendicular. One piercing's like this and the other piercing's like this.
They went through the lobe crooked.
Yeah. So if it's completely crooked, the gem's not sitting the right way, that needs to completely close up. We're piercing in the same spot, and then you go straight through. Now, the reason this is a tricky situation is if you're changing the angle, some earlobe piercings don't close. And if you're keeping the same hole in the front and then you're just angling the back a little bit, there's not enough change to where it's probably going to fall into the existing old scar.
So even if you pierced it straight, it'll fall crooked again over time.
It will fall crooked unless you can get your piercing to 100% close.
Okay.
So if you take jewelry out after a month and you just like it slides right back in, you're probably gonna have to go to a doctor and have that surgically shut and then start over if that is the case. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah. So basically, no, you don't just fix it. You basically quit on that piercing and restart with a better start.
And normally, I don't ever suggest using Mederma unless you're trying to close the piercing up. This is the perfect situation because you feel that tubular scar tissue, you might be able to break it down enough to where it can actually close up.
Heal up.
Now, and the other thing is sometimes if you take it in and out a couple times within a couple days, it might be enough to irritate it to where it might want to close up more. Because if your piercing's really healthy, it's not going to close up. But if it becomes an open wound by taking it in and out for a couple of days and starts getting sore, that's the best time when it's going to actually
I think that's another fact people don't realize, that like a healthy, clean, not red piercing going to be a lot more resilient than one that's like a little angry and red, that one wants to close.
People's piercings close all the time because like, oh, my piercing was really sore and I think it was infected, so I took it out. Like, well, it was an open wound. It's now closed.
As soon as you took it out, your body was happy about that
and
not closed
irritated,
it up.
that's when people go back and forth. It's when they have the issues. So
now Milo G has a question, sort of related. Is it true that you can't sleep on your side even after your cartilage piercings are healed?
Not true at all.
Okay.
You can totally sleep on that side. Piercings can act up and can get a little irritated, but it's really, really important that you downsize, if you have posts in there, to the right size jewelry so it doesn't migrate or kind of change angles, which is what we were just talking about.
Right.
So if you have the proper size jewelry, you can eventually sleep on it. I sleep on all sides and I have piercings everywhere.
So just during the healing process, you have to battle with that, but then you should be okay.
That you don't, because that's just an added irritant, which will lengthen the healing process.
Make it take
heal it up
much.
so you can sleep on it right.
Lexi Cleveland has friends who swear by putting Bactine on their new piercings. How do we talk some sense into these folks?
Read the directions on the bottle.
What does it say?
not made for puncture wounds. And find me a better example of a puncture wound than a body piercing.
It's as puncture as it gets.
It's as puncture as it gets. I know shops that are named puncture. So, I mean, that's in it in itself. Bactine, the active ingredient is benzalphonium or benzalkonium chloride. That is the same ingredient that is in a lot of ear care solution, like at places like Claire's. You know, they give you that little bottle of stuff. It doesn't do hardly anything. It can toxify with age. It's not a great chemical. But yeah, you read right on the bottle there, this is not made for puncture wounds. It's made for cuts and abrasions on the outside of the skin, trying to heal a scab and things like that up. It works really well with tattoos, taking redness and some of the irritation. That's why a lot of people put 2 and 2. It worked on tattoos. It's going to work with my piercing. Completely different type of wound. It won't work. Have your friends watch this part.
Right. Hopefully we can talk some sense into them. Amber says, hey, Scott, love the gold jewelry on you. Can I ask what the indentations on your cheekbones and under eye are? Is it scarification? Is it implants?
Good question. Now, many, many years ago, I had some brandings done on my face. I don't know if we're going to try to zoom in here.
I'm just going to make sure I'm tightly focused. Okay.
Now, underneath my eyes were brandings. I think it was 6 dots under each side. I had them burned in there 2 times, and I really didn't scar very much at all. After going through all that, you couldn't see anything. So then my friend Tom Strom offered to tattoo white outlines on the edge of my tattoos. And he's like, it'd probably make them pop a little bit more. It won't look like a tattoo, maybe a little bit, and I was like, yeah, sure, let's give it a shot. So we did it, and it looked really good, but there was no depth. Then he suggested we do a real light red shadow on the top side of these, is kind of coming down, which you won't even be able to tell. If you look real carefully, you can see a little bit of red in there, but it gives it depth. So it's branded and then tattooed to make it look like a worse scar than
to make it look, because you wouldn't actually scar as deeply as you wanted.
I tried so hard. It was so painful and so rough to go through that. Let me tell you this. One of the worst things I ever had to experience in my life was a yawn. Yes, you heard me right. When I was about to yawn, healing all these up with all these brandings, all my skin was so tight and I had all these little scabs. And when I felt a yawn come on, I knew that I was going to have about a dozen cracks in all my scabs with every yawn. So I was like, no, we're going to fight it so hard. And it hurt so bad. So yeah, the tattoos, that's what they are. They're my brand tattoos.
And down the bridge of your nose, there's no scarification there. That's just
I was kind of nervous because the skin is so taut and tight there that if we brand it, is the stuff going to kind of spread? There's no room down to that cartilage. So we decided just to tattoo white dots, and then I did a red shadow, which makes those pop out instead of in.
Super interesting, because it definitely appears to have depth, but that's all just the shading from Tom Strom.
Oh, illusion.
Very cool.
Yeah. Thanks, Tom.
All right.
I'm excited. Tom's coming to town. We're going to see Tenacious D on New Year's here. Tom and his wife, Jackie. It's good friends of mine, great artists, cool people.
Very fun. That sounds like that's going to be a good time.
Yeah. If you're in Denver, that's where they work. So you got to check out their work out in Denver, Colorado. Amazing artists.
Now, this is a great question from Annalise Gray, because it's sort of related to things that we've answered, but it's sort of different. As a New Year's resolution, we're going to start swimming, but we're scared of potential infection. It's been 5 months since the piercing was pierced, so it should be pretty healed, but we have a recurring bump. It keeps coming back over and over again. Is it safe to go swimming if you have a bump that's off and on?
Is it nostril?
It doesn't say. Let's assume nostril for right now.
If it was nostril, you're going to be fine. I would suggest maybe check into the jewelry to figure out why that bump's happening, or if you're catching on a towel, which is probably the most likely cause. Now, if it's in your ear, 5 months would be like about the earliest it could be healed up. You're not as much of an open wound anymore, so swimming shouldn't be an issue. It kind of depends on the chemicals they're putting in the pool. If you're going into a pool, it's heavy chlorinated or whatever. Sometimes that can react with piercing. So again, listen to your body. Chances are you're going to be totally fine, but that's probably the factor.
Yeah, it sounds like if you're going to be swimming a lot, Annalise, that toweling off after swimming is going to be the thing you have to be careful about.
Exactly. Yes.
It's drying the piercing and not catching it and yanking it every day.
Another thing, if you're really kind of worried about that, is bring your wound wash spray, which is like portable. Throw it in your little bag there. And when you're getting dressed or in the shower, you can kind of just spray on your piercing and just rinse off that chlorine, get the stuff out of there right away.
That's much. Don't hit it with the clean water.
In there. Just, get it out.
Very cool. Very cool. So yeah, definitely go swimming, Annalise, and don't worry too much about that bump. It shouldn't be a problem.
Yep.
We have a question from Saxman21. Hey there, I got my conch, doff, and double vertical earlobe. Let me try again. Got a conch, got a doff, got a double vertical earlobe. Neat.
Cool.
Yesterday. I'm super excited, and you're kind of an inspiration to me, Scott. I love your channel so much. Keep it up.
Thank you so much. So is that like stacked lobes? You got 2 sets stacked lobes?
Double vertical earlobe. So yeah, probably a vertical stack.
Pretty cool.
Very cool.
It's a lot of piercings. Make sure you stay healthy, heal those things up, and congratulations. And thanks for being a part of Piercing with Scott here.
Up next, we have a question. Hang on, I got tossed all over the place in the list here. All right. Our next question is from Deathborn. I recently stretched my PA from a 14 gauge to a 12 gauge within 2 weeks.
Yep.
And I noticed that there's still some space. Do you think it's wise to just pop a 10 gauge CBR in there, or is there some period of time that we should wait before going up again?
Now, it's so easy to overstretch and overdo these piercings, but sometimes Prince Alberts just stretch naturally really fast. And for those of you who don't know what the Prince Albert is, it's a penis piercing where it goes in the urethra, out the back of the head. Now, the thing is we're going through such a
back of the bottom
of the head.
Yeah.
Yes. When it comes out the top, that's called the reverse Prince Albert. That's another whole story. That one's not easy to stretch. This one, we're going through very little amount of tissue because from the urethra to the bottom of the head of the penis is very, very thin and small. So it stretches naturally really easily. Okay. So if you have that gap of skin there, if you already have that 10 gauge ring in the shower, if it just falls right into place and it doesn't hurt, that's not a problem. But if you have to work at it, give it more time.
Up next, we got another question. I figured we'd have to talk about this. Milo G says, Lynn Lohide recently put a video out about the quality of Invictus, specifically the polish and questionable titanium sources. Do you have any thoughts?
I want to see the proof.
Right.
I've heard these accusations. I've never seen the proof. They have all their mil spec sheets right on their website. I've been using it for years. I've never had any issues. Now, I did see that video too, and I do want to say this. She didn't mention the cost difference. You can't compare a normal Chevy with a Lamborghini.
That's a great point.
You know, this is a top of the line company, Anatometal hand polishes to the craziest degree. It's amazing, some of the shine and polish, but you know what? You pay for it. And most of my customers don't want to pay those prices.
That's an excellent point. I think you made a great point with like Lamborghini. Can we find a difference between a great daily driver car and a Lamborghini? Yeah. 100%. The Lamborghini is going to be better in a lot of comparable ways. Do you need a Lamborghini for every day?
Now, I'm a high volume shop. I use Invictus jewelry every single day, and my piercings heal up. Occasionally, you're going to have a problem, but people have problems. But if it was an issue, none of my piercings would heal up and my shop would be out of business.
I mean, that's a great point. You have so many piercings walk out the door every single day.
Every day.
That you're doing the science experiment right here. If people were getting in trouble, you'd know.
Is there a difference between polish? Yeah. Is there a difference in price? Oh, yeah. Huge difference. And I'm trying to keep it cost effective and more to all the people here.
Attainable for the average person.
Now, here's the other thing. A lot of those bigger companies also have huge wait where you have to wait sometimes 4 to 6 months to get jewelry from these companies.
That's a great point versus
I have this company. I can get jewelry almost right away. They're reliable. I get all the stuff I need. It's like if you're having a piercing emergency, you need to order some of those barbells or something. Emergency doesn't happen in 4 months.
Right.
Now, like I said, there's a price difference. There is a polish difference. And if you want that good stuff, go for it. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. But as far as saying there's something wrong with the metal inside there, I call BS.
I'm with you there. Yeah. All right. So there's that. That's another perspective on things.
Well, let's go back another 20 years when we healed everything up with externally threaded and surgical steel, and our industry still thrived and it kept growing. We got better. Yeah, things are better, but is it essential? No.
That's actually a great point. Is that every professional piercer who's been doing it for 20 years healed all their holes with steel. So
externally threaded.
Right.
You know, like we didn't start at the top right away and things worked. There's just better way. The better the polish, generally the better the heel. But I think there's a line where it's like, You're just paying to have the best.
Right. And that's fine, but
Yeah.
is that where everyone needs to be?
Correct.
Good question.
Correct.
All right. So definitely multiple perspectives. There's multiple sides to everything. And so there's something else to consider there.
Yeah.
Night Dino is planning on getting a scaffold industrial, which would be the one through here like this.
Yes. Awesome.
Do you have any kind of tips? What do we need to know going into this?
Okay. So it's important to research and find a good piercer. This is not a basic piercing, even though you see it everywhere. This is one where the angle is essential to be right in order to heal this piercing up. What I mean by that. Okay.
I thought we were going to the drawing board. We're going to the ear.
This is easier this way. So like if I had my industrial scaffolds going side to side like this angle needs to be this way and this one needs to be that way for this to heal up. Sometimes when people do the initial piercing, one is going to be angled down this way and this one's going to be angled this way. But then when you twist the ear and force it to go into that spot, you're contorting the ear and you're going to have massive bumps. You're going to have a long healing process if it even heals at all. You have seen piercing bumps on industrial piercings. You know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, Google it. You're going to see them and go, wow. And most of that is from bad angles or improper jewelry size. So find a good piercer. That's what I'm going to recommend. Expect 6 months to a year before you heal up. 6 months would be absolute minimum. Expect a year.
And a better piercer, like you're saying, is just going to hit those angles better and it's going to heal faster and easier for you.
Yep.
Very cool. Emily Sakuma, a follow-up question about the Septral.
Sure.
How long after getting the Septral should we wait before we put that septum jewelry back in?
It heals fairly quick. I would say probably it depends on the thickness of the cartilage there, but I would say minimum probably month and a half to 2 months.
Okay, so it's not like you have to wait forever. You can kind of
no, it's going to stay open. It's just going to shrink. And I'm trying to remember how Emily, my manager, did it. It might have even been a month where she started wearing 1 or 2 14-gauge rings in there just because she felt weird not having something in there.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't enough to cause any problems. But I think it was around the month and a half, 2 months, she started putting more in there and it flared up a little bit. So she backed off and a month later. So I mean, you kind of got to play around with it. You'll know if you're doing damage, listen to your body, but I would give it a little bit of time, at least a month and a half.
And if it does flare up, back off and take it easy.
Yep.
Very good.
Also, just want to mention this again. If you guys do the super chat, we have a lot of questions here. You do jump right to the front of the line. So
very good.
That.
Yes. And thank you again to Luna de Blue for doing that. We definitely appreciate that.
And if you haven't subscribed, we're so close to 100,000 subscribers. That is insane. Hit the subscribe button.
We would appreciate it, guy. Next up, we have a question from Dan Vitagliano.
Yes.
And it's hi, Scott and Jared. Greetings from SoCal. Hopefully you had a happy holiday. I got both my nipples pierced by Scott a week and a half ago, and things are going great. Side note, I'm being kind to my nipples.
Good. I tell people, be nice to your piercing be nice to you. Congratulations. Thanks for coming and seeing me. I wish I could pierce each and every one of you. I love piercing so much, especially people I get to chat with and part of the community.
Jaden Koiner is planning on getting a sternum piercing next year. Is there any advice you can give, maybe specifically about taking care of it properly?
Okay. The sternum piercing I'm guessing you're talking about is probably a surface bar. If it's a dermal anchors can reject after a couple years, but they can still kind of heal up pretty good there. Now, if you're doing a surface bar, did we do a video on the tape test?
I believe we did, but go ahead and explain it anyway.
Okay. So I believe it might be just like the cleavage piercing or sternum piercing video.
It's on the side of your neck, actually. It's something to do with the surface bars.
That's what it was. Surface bars. That might be the video you need to watch. But anyways, you take a piece of tape. If you're getting it here to here, and you're going to put that tape on there, and I'm going to have you stretch back, tilt your head all the way back, arms forward, try to touch your elbows behind. If that tape pulls or doesn't stick, that means there's too much movement and it's not going to heal. So it's super important to kind of play around. Sometimes they need to be higher up, sometimes they need to be lower down, sometimes closer together or further apart. These are all determining factors on whether the piercing can heal. Some people can't find that spot where it doesn't move. I have turned people away where it's like, I can't find a stationary spot to actually pierce. Then you would have to get the dermal anchor. So,
and it's going to still probably be trouble for the same reason.
So that's my advice. Before you even go in, play around, even put some dots on there. If you want, you can do dots. You can even hold a ruler up and do the same thing, kind of stretch and see if you can get it to.
I think the tape thing makes sense because then if you stretch it, you feel it like detach, cup, and then if you feel it wrinkle,
how are you supposed to be looking at it with
right? And then if it wrinkles, that's bad too, right?
For the most, wrinkles, which means like the bar is going to need to be shorter. Sorry, guys. Yeah, bars need to be shorter. It's going to cause it to reject out. So you need to find stationary.
So put the tape there and then stand in the mirror until you find a spot where the tape doesn't move.
Yes.
Very cool. So stand in the mirror with some tape, Jaden, and see if you're the perfect candidate for that sternum piercing. And if you are, then it heals better, right? You're going to get a nice, easy heal out of it. Very cool.
Should, as long as you're nice to your piercing.
Got to be nice to it.
Yes.
Sevda says, hey, happy holidays to you two, and may you both have a positively abundant 2023. Thank you, Sevda. We really appreciate that.
And same to you.
Seamus wants to know if it's normal for nipple piercings to heal crooked.
Okay.
It's normal for them to be pierced crooked.
That's right. Jared's heard this story a couple times. Now, nipples are one of the strange ones to mark. And this is, again, where if you go to an experienced piercer, they're going to know this. Now, nipples twist when they get erect. Okay. So if you're cleaning the piercing and you let the nipple calm down, go back to the most flat position, you put the dots on there. Once the piercing's erect, it twists and your piercing just went crooked on you. Okay. So even if the dots look straight, once the nipple's erect, it goes crooked. So that's why the nipple needs to be in the erect state when marked, because once the bar is behind it, it keeps it in more of that erect state. So it stays in that position.
And this happens automatically just because the nature of cleaning it usually causes that, correct?
Yes.
So that's why usually it just works out. Even if a piercer doesn't know that, it'll just kind of work out usually for them.
Correct.
But it's better if you know.
You know, and some people aren't really good with their words and they make things really weird and awkward. Like, oh, we need to make the nipple erect or something like that, you know? And it's like, there's a little bit of truth to that. But honestly, if you're a piercer, just shut up, clean the nipple, mark it right away, and you're fine.
Right. It's just going to work out. But everyone
shouldn't be getting sexually active with you at that point in time. Playing with your nipples and kind of, you know.
But
that's weird.
You are saying that it's not completely BS. There's a reason why it should be in that state for marking if you want the finished piercing to look level and correct.
And like I said, when we're doing them, we're actually cleaning the piercing, you know, and then I grab a toothpick or like the gentian violet marker and we put the dots on there. But if I cleaned you, let it sit for a couple minutes and we're talking, going over aftercare, and then I went into mark, the wrecked nipple's not there anymore.
It changes shape, and then it's not going to be in the same position.
Again, an experienced piercer will know this and not make things weird.
Quang wants to know, why don't we clean piercings with soap and water, but only saline, while the advice is to wash open wounds with soap and water? I think
yes and no. I mean, like if you ever had an operation and you had stitches and you're trying to heal that wound, they never tell you to clean with soap and water.
You're right. They tell you to leave it alone.
Leave it alone. Try to avoid it and let your body do its thing. Your body's trying to heal this up. Most soaps are too strong where they're going to wipe away that good barrier of bacteria and just kind of leave it more raw.
Yes.
You know, so it does get rid of bad germs, but also gets rid of the good ones you need there. So I think that's kind of what we figured out is the saline kind of helps replenish the skin cells. We're not trying to kill everything. We're trying to encourage the body to heal while soap discourages it.
And I also think it's a confusion about what the saline spray is for. Like people like soap is for like removing the dirt from something. You're trying to clean something out of it. With the saline solution, you're really just trying to loosen those crusties.
Pretty much.
You're softening things. You're
saline
not really
can help aid in some of the healing a little tiny bit, but you're right. That's not the purpose. The purpose is preventing irritation, which are the crusties. So if you let it spray and the crusties soften up and you can wipe those crusties off, the irritant is gone and it's going to allow your body to heal it.
Versus if you're rubbing soap in and you don't rinse properly, you're likely leaving an irritant in there. You're doing the opposite of
Right. You really break it down, it's kind of opposite but do they really say that for open wounds?
No, I think you're absolutely right. Like when I went in and I had a hernia surgery and they tell you to leave the bandage on it and not touch it for a certain number of days. And then they can tell you need to wash the area.
Okay. I got this figured out. If you fell and scraped your elbow, it is an open wound until the body forms a scab on there. Then you need to clean that out, clean out that open wound. The body forms a scab and then it's back to normal. So that's probably what misunderstanding as far as the open wounds. Most medical wounds are not open wounds for the length of time that body piercings are.
Yeah. So that makes sense. Yeah. If you fell down and scraped, you have to wash the dirt out.
Correct.
But that's not what's happening in a piercing.
Yeah.
It was started
If
clean.
your needle
It continues
has
to
dirt
be
in,
clean.
you need to find a different piercer.
Find a new piercer. But he's the cheapest in town, man. Ursula's Odds and Sods said, since I do not have the ideal doth anatomy, I got my other rook pierced at a 14 gauge to match the other side.
Sweet.
My conch on that ear is now a bit sore. Should I put a longer bar in until the swelling goes down?
I'm assuming you have your conch pierced. Is that what we're...
Well, we got a rook piercing, and that's making the conch on that ear sore.
Is there a conch piercing that is getting sore, or is the conch area getting sore? Is what I'm wondering.
Let's assume the second one from the way that
so the longer jewelry, they're saying it's for the conch, not for the rook.
Guess what? Yes, they'll put a longer jewelry in the rook.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm so sorry about that.
My understanding of this question. Well, let me also. There's a second part. Let me read that too, in case it helps. I also got my other nostril pierced and discovered the first one was done. All right, so that's a second question. We'll get to that second. But for the ear, I think what I'm gathering from this is that we got our rook pierced, it's swollen, but we're feeling the soreness in our conch actually.
Okay. Sometimes when you get a new fresh piercing in cartilage like this, it can bruise a lot of that area. It does happen. And whether you have a conch piercing or not, it could be sore in that area because of this. Now, if you're over swelling your rook piercing and the rook piercing is too tight, definitely get a longer bar. Now, if you have a conch piercing and that conch is too tight, then you want to put the longer bar in there too. I'm imagining if you have a conch piercing, you probably downsize to a shorter post. If you have that original post, just put the longer one in there and that could help.
Okay, so I see your other assumption. So if it could be just sympathetically making another piercing get swollen again.
This area swells and might be irritant down to there where it causes swelling on this. The little swelling causes more irritant.
So an already healed piercing that wasn't bothering us is now suddenly too tight.
That's kind of where I wasn't sure where we were going on this.
That makes sense. And so either way, you answered that question pretty good, I think.
Thank you.
What's the best time of year to get a piercing?
Asks S. When the time is right. Everyone's time of the year is going to be completely different. If you want to get your tongue pierced and you have a week's vacation, that's the time to take that week's vacation, because when you go to work and if you have to talk with a fresh tongue piercing, you're going to sound like a fool. That gives you a week to heal things up. If you swim all the time, but you take a couple months off in the winter, that's when you should be getting your cartilage piercings or the longer healing ones. If you're in between jobs and, you know, all these things are factors.
Or if you ski and wear a tight helmet, maybe the summer is the time to get your cartilage pierced.
Get allergies real bad. Get pierced in the winter when the allergies aren't as bad. Do you get...
Yeah, pierced.
So I wish I could tell you, but it's completely on you.
I think that's good. I think you gave several examples there of why you might choose a different time based on your personal challenges. Yeah, so that's pretty cool.
I will say this, one of my favorite things. I used to pierce in Minnesota, and nipple piercings in the middle of February and January always cracked me up because, like, you know, you do the piercing, like, thanks, have a good day. And you walk out the door, and I always go, hey. You can see everything just curling up. Because
is it the cold?
Cold, it just makes the nipples hard, and it just immediately hurts on a fresh piercing.
Oh, wow. So you don't even think about that.
It's things like that. It's just, you get used to it fairly quick, but a fresh nipple piercing is pretty sensitive.
I bet.
When you're going to negative 20-degree weather.
You know it. You know it immediately. Cassia Gardner is experiencing a problem. We have a flat piercing that is migrating. What size should we downsize to? Is that the problem? Like, is a flat piercing being too long?
Yes.
The cause of
flat
migration?
Flat piercings are notorious for migrating and changing angles. You need to downsize once that swelling's gone down. Sometimes as soon as a month and a half, sometimes even less. But most of the time, I say month and a half, 2 months before you downsize. It depends on the size they put in for you. I generally, most people in my experience are going to be wearing 1/4 of an inch. 1/4 of an inch, or even sometimes 9/32. I have seen smaller, like 7/32. If you're from Europe, you have no idea what I'm talking about, or any other part of the world, right? I think that's all up here now.
They can't see it.
No.
Yeah, okay. I was preparing for the next thing. Okay. So yeah, the
Google search, and I'm like, I think everyone can see this right now.
No, man, I'm on top of it.
Professional.
We just received another super chat from Tom Sean Backlund.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
very much. Thanks to you, I got a septum and a nipple piercing, and I love it. It healed a little slow, but I played with them a lot. Thanks for what you do. Would love to travel from Norway to you for a piercing.
I'd be honored to pierce you. Yeah. I love that I'm such an influence and can help people, encourage people to get what they want. Yeah, when you play with piercings, they don't heal as fast. So, but that temptation sometimes is so strong not to. And one thing I tell people is you're going to have that urge sometimes to really touch and play with a new piercing. If it's that strong, go home, wash your hands, wash your piercing well, and touch it and get it out of the way so you can stop doing it for the rest of the time. If that urge is there all the time, go ahead and do the touch with clean hands. Be clean about it and do it right away, and then it's out of your system. But sometimes it doesn't go away, and it's a tough battle. I think that's what I battle the most, is like leaving my piercings alone.
Right. And people have a hard time with that. The fact that like you get a tongue piercing and then you get told you're not allowed to play with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some folks feel like that's the purpose. That's like why I got it.
Like a nipple piercing. If things get more sensitive, like all of a sudden it's like, you're like, oh, that's right. I have a fresh, it's like that happens all the time too. Unless you're just being bad and playing with it.
Danielle wants to know, can you smoke after getting a nose piercing?
Did I just do a video on this one? Did we not edit?
I'm not
smoking
sure.
Okay. Anyway, this is my 2 cents on smoking. Yes, you can smoke. I don't suggest it. If you can cut back, it's best. But another factor, in my opinion, which is almost as strong as like not smoking, is stress. People come in with bumps and irritated piercings all the time because they are stressed out. And I know the quickest way to getting stressed out is quitting smoking. Wouldn't you agree, Jared?
Yeah, that's
a rough week.
Causes stress.
So yeah, it causes more stress. So you're not going to be calm and relaxed, and your body's not going to be as healthy. If you can cut back a little bit, cool. Don't exhale through your nose, and everything should be fine. Yeah, that's my 2 cents on it.
Up next, we have a question from Aaron. Wants to know if an auricle piercing is also called a mid-helix. Now, auricle, it seems like it's just above where your snug is. So just kind of as it opens back up into your helix.
I would call it like a mid-helix area. And this gets into such weird area because you can look up these specific areas. Everyone has a completely different ear shape. For example, my ears right here, like 2 completely different ears. Well, pretty darn close. And it's like hard to decipher. Those are bad examples. Let me do this one. Here's 2 completely different ears. See, I got all kinds of ears. Like hard to decide what the auricle is and what a flat is and what a normal helix is, a mid helix.
Because the ears are all different. There's no like specific points to anchor from. Mm-hmm. It's weird. Like I know that I had to learn about the shape of the ear when we were sculpting those. And then now when you look at people's ears, it's amazing how different they are. Yeah. They're all completely different.
I always get like friends like stop staring at my ear, Scott. And it's like, I'll look and I'm like, God, that rook, I can fit like 3, or I can, like, snug. It's got the perfect snug to pierce. And of course, it's just, yeah, everyone has such different ears, and also like everyone names things differently on the internet, which makes it difficult.
Right. Well, and there's some people want to give something a new name because then it's, fancy and it's theirs, and it's, a reason to go to their website.
Kind of a tomato thing.
It is. I always say tomato. Proteste Sarka says, please, what should I do if I cannot split the ball from the earring? So I assume we're talking about a captive bead ring, I would imagine, or perhaps a circular barbell and being unable to unscrew the bead.
Brad, could be okay. If it's a ring, okay, where it's a ring like this and it has a single bead on there.
You want to draw a picture of it?
Yeah, I do.
Boom.
So this is a captive bead ring where there's going to be a bead on the top, just like so. Okay. Now this bead right here that I'm pointing to is held in captively. So that ring is like pinching on that bead. So if you open the ring, the bead should pop out. Now, another possibility is the side on one side here might be welded. One thing you can do is you can twist the ring to the side like this, and the bead might stay on one, and you might be able to open it up to get it undone. Now, the other thing is if you have a circular barbell with the 2 beads like this, those are almost always screwed on. So if you get some latex, nitrile gloves, something like that, you should be able to untwist them. Now, once in a while, the last type of threading or non-threading would be a threadless piece. That's where if you had a labret stud, like so, and then the ball has a little pin like that on there. Now, this little pin has a small bend, so when it's pushed in, it's going to be held in by pressure, and you literally need to pull it apart. These are all the options for you. So you either twist the ring, you unscrew it, and if that doesn't work, pull it apart.
All right. So
I hope that helps. I think I got all of them.
I think that should help.
Yeah.
Jenna's question is, hi, I've had my Helix piercing for over a year. It feels healed, but I can't move it. I've tried to, but if I'd want to move it, I would have to force it. So a Helix piercing, I guess we're talking about stuck, sort of like adhered to the skin.
Okay. I'm guessing you have a ring in there. Let's go back to the drawing board again here, Jared, if you don't mind.
Back to the drawing board.
Now, sometimes when you're wearing a ring, there's this little gap right here. If you don't have a bead on the ring and the ring went all the way to the inside, this little gap, the skin's going to close up in between it, and it might be completely like sealed on the inside. Now, so if you're wearing a ring like this and you can't see a seam or a gap, that's probably what it is. Now, the other thing is, I don't know what else.
Could it be an adhere? Have you ever heard of a labret in a Helix getting adhered and being unable to slide?
Unless you were wearing like such a bad piece of jewelry with no polish where the skin completely stuck to it. But my suggestion to you is in a nice hot shower after about 5 minutes, maybe even 10 minutes of that hot water, that's when it's going to move and that's when it's going to free up. If you have that ring where that little seam might be in the middle and you can't get it to move, you literally just need to open it up and you just kind of lost your piercing, unfortunately.
Okay, it would have to be re-pierced.
It's kind of just pinching is all it's doing. It's not all the way through. The piercing's gone.
It might have allowed the middle to heal.
It's kind of like one of those little cuff rings where you just kind of push it and it kind of holds there.
Yeah, like a false piercing.
Yeah.
All right. So one of those options should help you a little bit. Jenna Newt wants to know if there's any good hypoallergenic options for black jewelry besides niobium. The only ones I seem to find are coated with something suspicious or at a very large gauge. It does seem like on the internet there's a lot of black jewelry. Is there good, safe black jewelry, or is that mostly bad stuff?
I really need to do a research video on PVD and explain this because PVD, well, you know the name. I can't remember the name.
Yeah, vapor deposit. Something vapor deposition,
like phosphorus vapor deposition. I don't remember something.
Yeah.
Anyways, it's a coating they put over the top. Now, when these first came out, they were telling us that this is what the coating, a PVD coating, they put over heart valves and things like that inside the body. You know, during like pacemakers and things like that. So it was safe to go in the pacemaker and it's not going to flake or chip off. It's safe here. But now I see some things that they're saying are PVD and are paint. There might be different levels of PVD, different medical grades, because you're seeing gold PVD, different color. I don't quite know.
We can do the research on this though. It's science, so we can nail it down.
Well, this is a great video idea. We're going to do this one. So yeah, so that's kind of the answer. Now you're saying niobium pretty much only comes in rings. I have seen some barbells, but it's so soft it's hard to thread on there. But that you're going to be able to get kind of a darker gray charcoal instead of a true black. That's the only true safe one that I know of. So yeah, you're kind of right there. I don't.
Black jewelry options are limited right now.
We're going to research this for you because I want to know more.
We'll figure out the safety of PVD. That's a good question. Thanks, Newt. We appreciate that.
Appreciate it.
Actually, on that subject, while we're here, we appreciate you, our fans. We've been doing this for 3 years now, like we said earlier. Yeah. And the question we have for you is, what types of content do you like the most? Do you like the whole truths where we explain each piercing individually? Do you like live piercings? Do you like the little short informative videos? Like, where should we aim our focus? What do you guys enjoy watching?
Story time, maybe me doing piercings,
right? Talking to people, interviews with other piercers or celebrities. Like, let us know if any of that sounds good to you, or what kind of content you might be interested in. Because we're always interested in hearing what you want, and not just following our own whims.
And let me ask you this too: would you guys be interested in maybe like being able to verbally, like putting you up on video chat here where we could talk more specifically, like, hey, I'm having a problem with my piercing. We could actually zoom in
and
actually
take calls.
Take calls.
Interesting.
I mean, that might be another possibility. Let us know.
Absolutely. So yeah, let us know what you guys think about that. We would appreciate any
idea,
feedback.
Suggestion, let us know. We're here for you guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Samantha Padley got a nose piercing and it's been bleeding since Saturday. It kept bleeding till Monday, went to a different piercer, and they said that the piercer who pierced me with a cheap metal corkscrew. So the jewelry type can cause this kind of problem. Like a poorly bent corkscrew could cause your nose to continue to bleed, or
poorly bent. Maybe if the jewelry was too tight, would be my thing. Okay. I've pierced with nostril screws for many years. Only recently I've kind of stopped just because they can fall out and the other ones are just a little bit more secure. The threadless jewelry is better, but you can still heal them up with nostril screws. It's just more difficult. Maybe it was the metal. Maybe it was a bad angle. I don't know exactly. There's a lot of blood vessels. There's even arteries in the back a little further up. So if you hit one of those, that could have been it. And this can happen with even high quality jewelry. So I wish I could say specifically, but I don't know. I would kind of have to see exactly what it is.
All right.
My guess is just poorly pierced, bad angle.
Right.
Maybe aftercare. I don't know what you're doing.
Right. But yeah, it's definitely not good for it to keep bleeding like that. That means something is wrong.
A couple days it can happen, but it shouldn't go past a couple days. And just a little bit here and there is all it would be.
We just got a donation super chat from Droskind. Thank you so much. You are awesome. With the message, oh my God, I love the Storytime episodes. So that's a vote for more stories of your...
I would love to do more. You have no idea how many stories are floating around up here.
So yes, thank you very much there. Let's see where we were at. Sermit says, hi, I recently got my conch pierced at a reputable piercer, and he was surprised when the piercer put a hoop in instead of a stud to heal. Is this the reason why I cannot get rid of my reoccurring bump?
Yes. In my opinion, rings cause bumps so much. Now, maybe this makes a little more sense, but the ring you put in a conch is going to be much larger than you would a helix piercing. Okay, the ring's going to be much smaller up here as opposed to going all the way around the ear. Now, because of that, if you're sleeping on it, there's more ring, more to actually twist. So I think it twists much harder and easier, causing the bumps when you sleep on this piercing. That's why I only pierce with studs. Studs generally heal in 4 to 6 months, and you're pretty well done for the most part. When I pierced with rings back in the day, a lot of times people battled it for over a year. So maybe change out to a stud, then do the ring later in the future. Now, the thing is I agree. There's a lot of great piercers out there who still will do these things. I mean, just a year ago or less than a year ago, I think I stopped using nostril screws. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a cheaper, easier option for some people, and that's what I just want to give to my clients. And that's what I think a lot of people do. Like I have another good friend who pierces conch with rings. He's trying to give what the customer wants. Some people have the mentality, well, if you won't do it, I'm going to go to so-and-so down the road and have them do it. And if that's the case, it's like, well, I can do it better than they can, so why don't I just use the ring? It's different levels of justification and what's best for the customer. Some piercers won't do anything if there's no chance of healing it up. I went to up in Denver and I started looking at some different shops and I wanted to get the back of my neck pierced. And everyone's like, no, it won't ever heal. And I was like, I don't know. I had it for like 10 years and got bored and just took it out, and I just want to get it re-pierced again. So, I mean.
By the way, spin around and show us that. You found someone to do it.
Oh, yeah. Check it out. I got new neck piercing.
Very nice.
Here I am touching it. Oops.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
I got a chat I can go to and tell on you. There's a guy who says not to do that.
I'm just trying to show where you can't see it.
Exactly. Oops. Oh, I should have yelled, please don't touch your piercing in a really terse voice like All right. Up next, we have a question from Addie Villalona. I just got my Medusa pierced. What is the best aftercare I can follow?
I suggest using an alcohol-free mouthwash. I personally like Bactine. That's my number one choice. My second choice would probably be ACT, ACT, where you kind of squeeze and it has a little dispenser top on there. Make sure it's the alcohol-free version. But those are the two that I've used for oral piercings. That's cleaning the inside of your piercing, and I suggest rinsing after every major meal, but maybe a max of like 3 to 5 times a day. Try to keep it less. Less is more. Now, the other thing is the outside of the lip piercings should be cleaned with a wound wash spray. I like using Neomed, where you just kind of spray directly on there. A minute or two later, you can wipe off crusties with a paper towel. That's pretty much it. Keep swelling down for the first week, and then you want to downsize after about a month to that shorter post. Super important so you don't do gum or teeth damage.
Milo originally got their ears done at Claire's as a kid. And the fistulas are zigzaggy.
Yep.
The front and the back don't line up, and they have to jiggle the jewelry back and forth to get it through. And they believe it won't close up. They plan on stretching. Will there be any issues with this?
I'm going to suggest you take a picture of the back of your earlobe. Okay. Now, this may sound kind of weird, but a lot of times people come in for piercings and they want me to I'm looking on the back of their ear and you'll see a single piercing. Like, oh, I'm here for my second holes. But the back of the ear has 5 or 6 holes coming out.
Oh, wow. So they enter the same place.
Enter, and they keep putting different holes. So if you're going to stretch, see if there's other holes, see if they can be lined up more straight, and then you kind of go from there.
Pick the right one.
Sometimes that is a factor. I've seen this, multiple holes in the back. I don't know if they're all open or if they reopen it each time or what the deal is.
Just a couple of times when you've been like, oh, that went through kind of hard. It was you actually re-piercing a new hole.
Depends on how much of an angle it is. Go to a reputable piercer and see what they suggest about it. I know sometimes they won't close. But yeah, if they're the complete wrong angle, it won't work that well. There's something you can do, whether it's Mederma, getting rid of scar tissue.
Right, trying to heal it completely up.
If you waited a month and it's not doing anything, be a little more aggressive about it. Maybe stretch it up the first time, try to go a 10 or a 12 gauge or something. Just slightly overstretch and see if it will close up on you.
Like anger the inside of the fistula and then pull your jewelry out.
Yeah.
And it'll heal up possibly.
Sometimes.
Interesting.
Don't overdo it. Don't rip your ears. It's such a fine line for me to saying something like that.
Right. You don't want people to cause harm.
Yeah, I don't.
Laura says, hi, Scott. Is it true that anodized jewelry can fade over time? I'd never considered this, but I heard it recently. And if so, how long does it take and does it depend on where the jewelry is?
Yes, it does.
We'll just look at me some more.
Talk for a second.
I'll talk for a second. We'll go ahead and say hello to Laura, who said hi to me. Thank you very much. And Scott is back.
All right. Okay. So I don't know if you can kind of see. I'm going to hold this up. Now, this is an anodizing chart. Now, as you can see, there's different voltages on there. Now, if you started higher up in the gold area, which is like around a 65V, over time, it's going to fade and it slowly works its way down that chart. So it'll turn less and less yellow to eventually like a blue, and all the way back down to that really darker purple. It's a weird order of operations, but as you see, it's like 12 volts, like electricity does this, 12 volts, 15 volts, 18, 20, and that's how it works. Yes, Jared was absolutely right. If there's more wear and tear in an area, wear and tear meaning, that's not breaking, more movement. So the more movement, like tongue piercings, they fade probably the fastest just because it's constantly moving, food's hitting it. They just don't hold their color the same way. Cartilage piercings, if you have a barbell and it's stationary in one spot, that bead is not going to be hitting anything. It's probably going to hold its color for a long time. But if you had a captive bead up there, a ring, it's going to eventually lose a little bit faster. Sometimes I've also heard, I can't back this 100% up, but the pH of the body, someone who has a stronger pH can break down that titanium oxide layer over the top faster than other people.
Right.
So yes, where the amount of movement and the pH level can be a factor. All anodizing is the same. Once it's one color, it's one color. It's not like one person can do it better than the other person.
For anyone interested in the science end of it, it's actually the thickness of the layer on the outside. As he applies those different voltages, the titanium oxide layer of crystals gets thicker and thicker on the outside of the metal and refracts the light differently.
Yep.
And you see different colors. So that's why he was saying as the thickness of the layer goes down, it'll actually change colors. it'll start refracting blue, and then it'll start refracting a different blue
Correct,
and work its way through
because
like that.
The higher the voltage, the thicker the layer gets. You slowly wear that layer down to where it refracts that certain color light.
And that's a layer of titanium oxide, which is completely body safe, which is why anodizing things is not like painting them, because it's an actual crystalline structure on the surface.
And titanium and niobium anodize slightly different colors. The same colors, but niobium tends to be far more vibrant and colorful.
Looking. Oh, very cool. Science. We're all big fans of science around here. Delphian Truth says, how was I not subscribed? I've been watching you for 6 months. Fixed now.
Thank you so much.
I plan on getting...
All right.
Okay, cool. I planned on getting... I lost my spot here. There we are. I plan on getting my nipples pierced in the next few months. Is there a better time or season for getting nipples pierced?
I've mentioned this earlier. If you live in a place that's really, really cold, going outside with fresh nipple piercings isn't very comfortable unless you bundle up a lot. Otherwise, it's situational. You know, it's like if you go swimming all the time, you want to give it several months to heal up before you go swimming. You can always put Tegaderm patches over the top, but temperature is probably the biggest factor.
We got a donation from Cody S. Thank you so much.
Cody.
That's awesome. The question is, when was the last time you took on an apprentice?
I've been going on and off with apprentices for the last 4 or 5 years. I haven't had a lot of success with it. I don't know if it's necessarily my teaching style, the wrong mix, the wrong time. But some of the people, it just didn't work out in their lifestyle, so it didn't work out very well. One person ended up getting the license to pierce, so they did really, really well. That was Jose.
Yeah.
But he just went another route now. So yeah. I've tried several times. I've had success. It's tough finding the right person to fit in the family and to really portray that knowledge, because everyone learns differently, everyone teaches differently, you know, and you got to wait for the right circumstances to come. So how do you learn about a septral piercing if you've never seen one done?
So you just kind of have to wait around until a septral walks in the door.
Now it's like a busy enough shop where it works. But honestly, I'm not super interested in doing apprenticeships for the next several years, probably.
Just
I got a couple other things in mind.
You got some other things to work on, but that's a good question. Thank you. Droskin says that's actually a really awesome test with the tape. So that's a useful trick.
It works so well. Old school trick.
Tessa says, hi, I got my belly button pierced for 3 months now. It doesn't seem to have any issues and sleeping on it doesn't hurt, but I'm still afraid of rejection. When can I safely sleep on it without worrying about that?
If you're done with crusties and there's no irritation ever anymore, you're probably fine. I would say the biggest concern you're going to have is if you change out to different fancier jewelry, more costume jewelry where it has bigger gems, prongs, if there's dangles on there, those things can get caught and ripped a little bit easier. So that would be the biggest factor. If you're just worried about sleeping on and rejecting, I think you're in the clear.
Excellent. It's a concern. You know, I mean, we talk about it. No one wants that big scar. So it's something to be a little afraid of.
And, you know, like I said, use your camera phone. If you're concerned about it, take a picture every month, like 1 month from now, the next month. And if you can see like the bars getting, or the skin's getting less and less, the bars getting longer, it's rejecting. It doesn't happen overnight where the body goes and it's out.
It's slow. It's so slow you don't notice.
A lot of times you don't. You're like, is my bar getting longer? I don't remember this ever happening. But when you look at those pictures and go, oh no, it's rejecting.
Oh wow, right. It would be obvious in a picture.
Yep.
So hopefully that's a good trick that people can use also. Elisa Malatrasi says, hello, Scott. I'm from Italy and I've been following you for the last 4 months. I just want to thank you so much for your videos, because I was afraid of needles and you made me feel more secure with all the informations and suggestions you share with us. I'm getting over my worst fear and I had a helix, a conch, a navel, and a surface sternum. Thank you so much. You're doing an amazing job.
Thank you. I appreciate all that. You know, you bring up like you have a fear of needles. I think most everybody does. And this might be another fun research one to do here, is like understanding the fear of needles. Why does everyone have it? Is it subconsciously for like when we were babies, we got all these shots and we didn't know what was going on. So some of us remember and some don't.
Some the media, you know what I mean? Like cartoons, like, scary needle. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean, why don't I have that fear of needle the same way? You don't really have it either, though, do you?
No.
Some of us are just like have that thing disconnected.
Yeah, just click the switch. Let's do stuff.
But you're not alone. And for the longest time, for many, many years, I've always been that way where face your fears. If you're afraid of something, do it. If you're afraid of talking in front of someone, get on YouTube. If you're afraid of needles, get over the fear, get some piercings. I mean, you're facing your fear head on. I was afraid of reptiles for a while. I ended up getting a snake and a scorpion and tarantula and a couple different lizards, water dragons, bearded dragons. I went all in, and it's like, I'm reptiles parent now, and arachnids and whatnot. But
that's neat.
But yeah, so that's, you face your fears, you get over it, and life gets easier. And it feels pretty darn good to overcome those fears.
This is good advice. See, this is turning into a warm and happy place where we can all learn important things. Milo asks, if someone gets their tongue split, would you be able to get each side pierced after it was healing? Like a what do we call that? Venoms. That's it.
Like,
I was lost. I was like, there's so many words.
Name. It's a venom with little, the separation.
Venom with a split. So
you got it. I bet that has a name. If it doesn't, someone should name it.
Someone should.
Yeah.
Someone with it.
Yes, you 100% can, because there's venom piercings. We're not going through those big veins in the bottom. You do learn independence once you get it split, so you kind of play around with that. Yeah. I think Kelsey, my other piercer, was talking about having that done. I'm not 100% sure.
Because she has the split?
We're totally videotaping that and showing.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that would be sweet.
Yeah.
Coconut got my snug pierced a month and a half ago, and I got a little bump above it. Keeps bleeding, but no yellow pus, and it's still very swollen to the point where it hurts my conch ring. Any tips for aftercare?
If you're wearing a ring in your conch, maybe go to the stud for a little bit, because any irritation in that area is going to transfer back over to the snug. The snug is a long, rough heal. It's going to stay swollen for months, pretty much the whole healing process. So be patient. Bumps do come and go with this. Once the swelling's gone down and you can downsize to a different size bar, that is essential, because if you leave that longer one in there, it can re-irritate and cause the swelling to come right back. So congratulations on your piercing. I love snug piercings. You know, it's one of the few ones I haven't gotten done. Maybe I'll have to be one of those.
Haven't had a snug? It seems like a yucky heel. You have to be committed to get that one. It's a thick piece.
I don't know if you figured this out or not yet, but I'm pretty committed.
You are somewhat committed. Mandy Cooley just got a Helix piercing 3 days ago, and it wasn't bleeding until the next day. And for a day or two now, it's been bleeding. What to do?
Stop the bleeding. Apply some pressure. Take some gauze or paper towels after you kind of clean your piercing with some wound wash. Just apply some pressure, and once you hold that pressure on there for like 5 to 10 minutes, it should stop any bleeding. Now, bleeding seems to be the topic today, doesn't it?
It's coming up a lot.
Okay. Now, I'm going to explain this here. Now, when your piercing's done, you make a crescent incision. The needle does not remove tissue. It makes a crescent cut, like a half moon, and pushes tissue off to the side. Now, imagine giving or drawing blood. You know, if you have the needle in your arm, you don't bleed until the needle comes out, because the pressure is relieved from that cut. If you make a cut and put a bunch of pressure, that's when the bleeding is. So it generally does bleed a day or two afterwards, once the wound relaxes and your body's not fully clotted. It just takes a little tiny irritation and it's going to start bleeding. So I always tell everyone, it's like, I don't always tell them, but it's written down on the aftercare sheet that you can't expect bleeding for a couple days after. That's normal. But if it bleeds, apply pressure and get it stopped, because we don't want to bleed.
Clarification from Ursula's Odds and Sods earlier. It was a conch piercing that was already well healed, sore by association.
Yes.
So in those cases, yeah, it is okay to upsize those nearby piercings, you'd say, until everything was calmed down.
Sore by association.
I
really like that phrase.
It's good.
Sore by association.
Start a band. Name it that. Laura says, if I have a bump on my nose but have some space on either side of the bar, will getting it downsized help to get rid of this bump?
Yes, for sure. Unless it's only like a couple weeks old or so. If it's about a month or so, downsize to a shorter post. Sometimes you have those bumps, and if you still have extra bar, it's because of the movement and the crusties being pulled back and forth. So shorten it up, not too tight, so it doesn't move, and then the irritation should stop. Bumps will or should go away. And sometimes, also, once those bumps go away, you might need to downsize again, because it might be too long again. So
part two to the question, if we downsize it too much where it squeezes the bump, will that make things worse?
Yes.
So you've got to be the porridge that Goldilocks ate, right in the middle. Not too long, not too short.
Goldilocks stage, exactly. It's got to fit properly.
All right. Astral Gypsy says, hey, it's Kat. I have a bump on the outside of my vertical labret. I haven't bumped it or irritated it, and I clean it with the spray. How do I get rid of it?
Vertical, okay. You know, sometimes it's just seasonal. Like right now, I know my skin's very dry and irritated. A lot of people have chapped lips, things like that. So if it's a little bit irritated like that, that does happen. With a newer piercing, I don't know how old it is. How old did they say?
Doesn't say.
Generally, it's going to take about a month to 2 months to be healed up. You're going to want to downsize to a shorter post after about 3 or 4 weeks, because if you leave the longer one in there, the movement will cause irritation. Sometimes that's all it is. So I would say maybe downsize if you haven't already and it's that time. Otherwise, keep spraying and the bump should go away.
Milo has a question that actually is about ear anatomy. It sort of dovetails into what we were talking about earlier. Go for it.
Go back to the vertical labret thing. If you're using some sort of chapstick, lip gloss, things like that, and that gets inside there, that could be the cause of the irritant too. I know chapstick is very, very problematic on these piercings. So interesting.
So that could be something you don't even think about. That really the problem.
It took me a second to think about it, but yeah, that's another factor. Okay, back to.
So this is a sort of an ear anatomy question.
Sure.
If you pull one of the ears for me.
Sure.
Milo wants to know if someone has a very tall crux helix, which would be the ridge we actually pierce, the doth, if it continues in and divides the conch in half. So you know how in some people, one lower than that, like the doth, some people's doth is so long that it continues out and kind of splits their conch into two.
Yes, yes.
Does that keep you from getting a doth piercing? Could that ridge be too tall and make it so you don't get a conch? You can't have a conch anatomically?
I've never been asked that question, and that is a fantastic question. I have an answer for you. Yes, you can still get it pierced.
Okay.
I'm going to suggest you get it pierced with a circular barbell. The reason being is, it's such a good question.
That's a good one. I like it.
Okay. So like, as we say, the doth basically continues all the way across here. Now, if you're wearing a ring, that ring might be laying out because it's resting on that crux. Mm-hmm. But if you did a circular barbell and you open the beads up far enough where it can go in the middle of it, it's still going to sit flat and stay stationary.
One bead above and one bead below.
Correct.
Very cool. And that's kind of a neat look. That would be a distinctive type of doth.
More of what we're kind of talking.
Yeah, where the conch is actually kind of split into two.
Connects all the way out. Sometimes it does split it into two. But yeah, a larger circular barbell could be good. And if it's big enough, you could even do a series of like almost bars down there. That's pretty awesome.
Cody S asks, what's the correct spot to pierce a nipple? How does one determine what's too deep, what's too shallow? Where do you go?
It depends on the anatomy. Some guys have very, very tiny nipples, and we don't want to cut the nipple off with the piercing needle. Then you need to go just a little tiny bit into the areola in order for it to be pierced. Normally, we're going right at the base of the nipple and the areola, as long as there's enough tissue to support. Once the piercing's done, the tissue will regenerate a little bit and can actually make the nipple grow a little tiny bit. On rare occasions, I have pierced a nipple at a 16 gauge with the promise of that person after a couple months, once it heals up, that we stretch it up to the 14 gauge. I personally don't believe you should have anything thinner than a 14 gauge below the neck. But in certain situations, I have started smaller and stretched up just to make sure we don't cut the nipple off.
Now, so that's the occasion where the nipple is particularly small and we have to account for that. On an average nipple, say a nipple that's several times as wide as the needle, you don't have to worry about that. How do you go into the areola some? Is it kind of like at the bottom of the top hat, like where?
Okay, so we'll say if this is the nipple, right here is where we want to be piercing.
Right at the surface, basically.
Right at the surface, just like that.
Okay, so up into the nipple would be too far out. That's no good.
It's up to the person. If they wanted it to be up like so, you can do that. But keep in mind, I told you that the tissue will regenerate. So if we initially did the barbell from here to here, the nipple will come out and make it look like it's further out on the nipple.
So over time, it will kind of space out from you anyhow.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Some people who only have one nipple pierced will have it pierced for years and decide, I want to get the other side done, but this one comes out further on the nipple. I'm going to pierce it further at the base of the nipple here again, because it's going to take some time before it comes back out. Otherwise,
they would be less symmetrical.
More tissue on the top of the nipple up here, like so.
Okay.
You know, it's like one piercing will be like that, and the other nipple is going to be like so. You can see there's more tissue here than there is here.
Right.
So I was trying to match things up and plan for the future.
Julie and Nenny wants to know if you think a microdermal up near the hairline is a bad idea. Have you ever seen something like that?
I have. Most people do transdermals up there as opposed to microdermals. I have seen some people heal them up, but generally microdermals only last a couple years. Transdermals. Let's go back to the drawing board here. Again, I'm not a body modification expert. With transdermals, like a normal dermal anchor has got like this, you know, little holes, little foot, and it kind of comes up, and you put like a disc on the top. A transdermal is like a clover where there's holes like so, and coming out of the top here is where the ball goes. So this one here, the transdermal, is much larger. The holes are much more anchored in there. And a lot of times the post coming out of the middle is slightly thicker, and they can work better than the microdermals, I believe. I have heard a lot of piercers or body modification artists have stopped doing these transdermals because they're problematic. But at the same time, I don't know. None of them seem to really be a permanent solution.
Right. They're more like a temporary decoration that will eventually get
Then if that's
moved.
the case, the microdermals might be the better answer.
Dre Michelle wants to know, or wants an industrial piercing, and wants to know how long the pain will generally last. And we wear glasses. Does that have an effect on this?
Sure. When you're looking at an ear for an industrial, correct?
Yes.
Now, if your glasses rest right here, and that's where the bead or the ball is going to have to rest, that will be a problem. It kind of depends on where it attaches. Now, if your head attaches down here and the piercing's up here, it's going to be out of the way, and that will work for you. So that can be one of the determining factors. You can go talk to your piercer and see if you have the right anatomy, because not everybody does. Make sure you bring in your glasses when you do this. As far as the pain and I would say 6 months, it's going to be like a rough bruise. You're going to sleep on it. You're going to know it's there. It's never going to not hurt, but you kind of get used to it. After the 6 months to a year, you kind of forget it's there. It's only when you get smacked in the ears when you really know it's there.
And then you really know it's there.
Learn to duck.
Luis Lott wants to know, should I get a rook and a conch pierced if I ride horses frequently, which means wearing a helmet?
Can you look up Google, see what the helmets look like on horse riders? Because is that the type of thing where is that like a bicycle rider's helmet where it's above the ears?
I'll throw you another question and work on that.
Sure.
Oni-chan just started doing swimming lessons, and now we're planning on getting a nose piercing. Will the chlorine irritate this new nose piercing?
Yes.
What do you do about it?
Generally, most piercings are considered to be open wounds for probably about a minimum of a month, sometimes a couple months. So I suggest at least keeping out of water for that time being. After that, everyone heals a little differently. Some nostril piercings are healed up in about a month to about 2 months. So I'm kind of looking at some of these horse riding helmets, and they look like there's straps that go under the ears, and it doesn't look like the ears very much touched.
Closer to like a bicycle helmet with an exposed ear rather than like a motorcycle helmet where you'd have to force your ear through something. So I think if you're careful, you'd get away with this.
Is that helmet really that big? You see that really big one?
Yeah. Well, I mean, do you want to be safe or not?
I suppose. Yeah. Okay. Good question. It's unbelievable. We've been doing how many of these chats now?
This is 42.
And I keep getting original questions.
That's
I don't know
awesome.
how that's possible.
There's a lot of people, and we all have questions.
You guys are awesome.
So yeah, Luis Lott, you should be able to probably get away with that helmet. Just be careful putting it on and off. You just yanking on your piercing is what causes problems.
Like the strap going behind your ear, if the conch pin was long. Conch was one of them, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it could get caught on there. That's the biggest problem with conch piercings when people are wearing the masks, is that it got caught and rubbed against there. So as long as it's not touching that area, you should be fine.
And the rook would probably be okay because it's well clear.
Absolutely.
Yeah, S comments, I don't know how people can touch their piercings. I've had a cartilage piercing for over 6 months, and I only just recently touched it. It healed amazingly though. So it's a good thing to not touch them.
Proof is right there. If you don't touch it, you leave it be, your body just deals with it. We are the biggest form of irritation for any piercing. Touching, play. I mean, you saw me, I touched my nape. It's new. I don't know why I did. They're trying to point it out and jab it. I was shaving my head earlier today and I grabbed it with a razor too. I mean, God.
It's even if you're experienced, these things
Props
happen.
to you for not touching it until now. Good for you.
Katie Rundell says, hey guys, just wanted to share. I got my conch pierced at a 4 gauge and it's healing beautifully. Awesome, Katie. That's super cool.
If you can follow up, let us know. Did you get it pierced or did you get it biopsy punched at a 4 gauge? 4 gauge is a large needle, and that's pretty intense. That's how my conches were done. Mine were pierced at 4 and stretched right to 2s. They heal pretty quick at large sizes. So yeah, congratulations on that. That's awesome.
Tiffany Justice just got a right rook done at the beginning of the month. Was told that I had a nice one, and I sleep on my left side. What ear piercing can I also get done soon without irritating the rook? They have 2 other lobe piercings.
Right on the right side of the rook. Sometime a conch piercing would work really well. Forward helix.
It's far enough away, or anywhere in the helix area, really.
Yeah.
Would probably be far enough away.
You know, and let's go back to the beginning, like, and quote there says, told I had a nice one. That's my favorite part about being a piercer is the compliments we get to give. No one else gets to give.
Oh, yeah. Ooh,
look at that snug. That is absolutely beautiful. People are like, well, thank you. Like, you know.
Should have been an ear model.
Helix is so thin, you know. Like, thank you. No one's ever told me that before.
I mean, you got to be proud of having pretty ears. That's the way it is.
Yeah.
MJ says, if I get a Christina piercing and it still hasn't healed while I'm on my menstrual cycle, do I take it out?
No, leave it in.
Leave it in.
Totally fine. Sometimes piercings can act up and swell up or be a little irritated. Just hopefully you have the right size jewelry in there. If the jewelry is too tight and pinching, you need a longer bar. How do they say how old the piercing is?
It's a theoretical if we get it pierced.
Oh, yeah. No, it's not a problem. It's going to be months for Christina to be completely healed up.
So you're going to go through your cycle a few times.
It's not a big deal. Yeah, I thought you were saying it's causing a problem or something.
No, we're just asking theoretically in advance if that's an issue.
Totally fine.
Cooper, super cool. My belly button piercing consistently has a scab at the top that keeps reappearing. I try to keep it clean, but I don't know what to do to heal it, says Aurora. Any thoughts?
Yes, I do have thoughts. Check your bead to make sure the bead screws all the way on. Let's go back to the drawing board here, Jared. So like if you had a curved barbell and you got the big gem here and the gem up top, sometimes the threading here going in is going to leave a small little gap. What I mean by that, let's see if I can make my drawing better.
Drawing with Scott.
You see how there's just this tiny little gap in there? That tiny gap, sometimes the skin is going to pinch on there, and when it moves, it's going to be constantly keeping it irritated, which is why you would have a bump. So if you have that little gap in there, that could be the problem. Another factor is sometimes jewelry, if the bead's getting pulled inside a little bit, if the jewelry's too tight, you need a longer bar, and that will cause stop the irritation. The other factor, your pants. If you are wearing high-waisted pants and they rub right up against that belly button, it's just going to stay irritated. Expect sometimes up to a full year for it to be healed if you're wearing high-waisted pants. Those are my thoughts.
Excellent thoughts, Scott.
Thank you.
We're getting to the part where they're responding to our question about what content is good. And Milo loves the whole truth, the story time, and the actual piercing procedure videos. Immortala loves the interviews and the live piercings. S is genuinely into all of it. Piercing is my special interest, so I will literally watch anything. Got another all from Aurora. Sevda wants all of the above as far as your content goes. Laura says, video ideas, maybe show the healing process of different piercings with images at different stages, pictures of common problems like nose bumps, nesting, migration, and advice on how to avoid or deal. Super cool, Laura. I like
healing
that.
Stages. I love that.
And especially specific pictures of problems. Like, don't just talk about bumps. Let's look at some bumps and get some ideas. So love you guys. Those are all great suggestions. We appreciate it. Cassia Gardner says, live piercings, take calls. Louise Lott says everything, but those life hack tips videos are really helpful. MJ would love to see more clips of client piercings because that's just always fun to see. Cassia Gardner loves story times. Sevda agrees that taking calls would be genius. Michael Ubler suggests perhaps some do's and don'ts, things to look out for those of us who do body piercings but might not have had the best training or could use some guidance or the right direction. Krista Thomas says, hey,
definitely hit that one up. Yeah,
absolutely.
Like we'll hit that up with the piercers, just like little tips and tricks to becoming a better piercer. Just opening people's minds so they can see what they're doing.
I actually like that.
Great idea.
Because, piercers are the smaller group, but I think everyone's interested in seeing it either way, even if you're not a piercer.
Everyone here is important.
Absolutely. Krista Thomas says, I'm a big fan. I've learned a lot from you guys. I just got a nose piercing and I got it from an in-law's house. And the piercer said to clean my piercing with salt and water. So that is the advice that went around forever.
That's just old school. And it has to be non-iodized, fine-grained sea salt with distilled or filtered water. And it has to be mixed precisely accurate, hence replicating replicating saline, which is wound wash, which is pre-mixed, pre-sterilized. Everything's just better. So just use the wound wash. Yeah.
Wound wash. It's the same thing. It's just faster.
Faster, easier, and more accurate. More people are lazy and don't mix exactly perfect. The improper mixture causes problems.
Right. Because again, it's not like you're washing something out of it. You're just trying to neutrally keep those crusties soft and get them out of there. Positive words from Lisa R. I did it. I'm finally working at a piercing shop after all that time of being fascinated with piercings. I love it.
Congratulations.
We love it too.
It's such a fun community to work in. You see people happy all the time. You get to sell jewelry. You see pretty gems. It's just a win-win situation.
Ursula's Odds and Sods suggests, I love all the current content. Maybe do some more story times and reviews of jewelry companies. I appreciate that you stick to piercing instead of getting into the drama and politics like some piercers.
Thank you. Yeah.
It's
trying to eliminate that. It's just knowledge and just trying to be better.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get better by talking bad about other people or
exactly.
We're being better.
How can you start out to become a piercer as a minor? Rain asks. So say we're under 18. We think that this is the future we want. What are some early steps? How do we get ourselves on the right path?
It's a really good question because you're kind of you're limited and you're not going to really get much of an apprenticeship because you're entering an adult world where there's 18 plus piercings. And when you're dealing with a minor and you're dealing with someone who could be naked, it's really awkward and you could get into some legality
I see what you're saying there.
So that's kind of like the number one issue. But I like where you're going with this. The best thing I can suggest is maybe taking some bloodborne pathogens course online. Okay. This way you understand the dangers and cross-contamination. Follow other piercers. See if you can watch piercers do piercings and see those types of things. Understanding the knowledge, like going through the whole truth series, understanding all these piercings, what are good, what are bad. And so when you enter your apprenticeship, you're entering in with some knowledge, but you're not entering in with bad habits. So I don't ever suggest starting piercing your friends out of the home is not the best way to start.
So like a lot of people would think like, okay, I want to be a piercer. I should get on the internet and buy some needles and start poking holes. Like you're saying that that's not the answer?
No, it's 100% not the answer. You're not going to get an apprenticeship by me that way because I don't want to start someone with bad habits. Now, if you came to me and say, hey, I understand all the ear piercings and I quizzed you, like point out a snug, point out this, what are the sizes, jewelry size, and you start understanding this, that's a better starting basis than not. Understanding all the jewelry companies, what companies have what. You might not be able to order the jewelry, but you can understand, SM316 carries some of the best niobium, and high polished steel rings, but that's all they carry, their specialty.
I think like you said, a thorough understanding of the sizes used in piercing. Correct. Understanding how to measure things in 1/16 of an inch. You know what I mean? What's 1/60 of an inch smaller than 5/8? You should be able to answer a question like that quick off the top of your head if you want to be a piercer.
There's another podcast I would point you out right away called the Piercing Wizard podcast. Ryan Roulette puts that out. It's amazing. I've learned so much on there, and it's more geared towards piercers, but excuse me, at least you can get a base knowledge and understand circumstances and getting some of those things in your head before it even happens.
Because there's a lot to learn. Like that's a reason apprenticeship takes a year. Is there's so much to learn.
Exactly. So that's my suggestion to you. Don't start stabbing people. Start getting knowledge, and there's many sources of it, and just do your best.
Addie Villalona says, "Thank you for your advice, Scott."
You're very welcome.
Milo says, regarding my question about the zigzagging fistula, I did know about the multiple holes through the back, so I already checked. And I only have one hole on the back.
Okay.
I've left jewelry out for as long as 2 years and it still won't close. So in that case, it might be what you were talking about, where maybe you intentionally like anger that piercing a little bit and then see if it'll close.
Yeah.
Because right now it's like stable and neutral and there's no reason it would close, right?
Okay. I probably shouldn't be talking about this online, but
Let's
what if
do
I'd like doing offering piercings without jewelry to force things to close.
Oh, so the whole purpose would be to stick a needle through, but then not put jewelry
Not
in
jewelry,
it.
because everything's going to be bleeding and open wound.
So you'd be disrupting the fistula. You could potentially cause a little more scar tissue
This
because
is something
of
where
that.
I'd like to have a round table with other piercers and discuss
Right.
this type of thing.
Well, we'll have to put that on the list here. This is one of the questions to bring up on the round table. So yeah, Milo, it's kind of tough, but things like Mederma, things like what Scott was saying earlier, where if the piercing is in a sort of annoyed state, it's more likely to want to close versus like right now, having been fine for 2 years, it's kind of happy where it's at.
It's frustrating though. I totally feel for you when piercings won't close and you want them to close. It's really, really tough. So.
All right. We are starting to run out of time, so we're just going to hit a couple more of these questions. We apologize to anyone whose questions we missed. We will try to get to you next week. We appreciate you coming.
Thank you for all the super chats. That's the quickest way to get to the top of the line. See, we can't get to all of them, but we try.
We try our best.
Yeah.
Newt says, where I live, it's difficult to find good piercers. I found one that I'm thinking of going to. She has 25 years of experience, good reviews, only she doesn't have a portfolio. In that case, is it worth traveling to get your piercing somewhere else for someone that has a portfolio? Or
some people involuntarily have portfolios online via Yelp, Google reviews. So go through all that stuff, and sometimes you're going to see pictures of the actual piercings. Chances are you can probably go to the shop and just go jewelry shopping there. Just get the general vibe of them. Talk to them and say, hey, I was thinking about getting this done. Do you have any suggestions what to use? And just kind of go from there. Just because someone doesn't have an actual portfolio there, it doesn't necessarily mean they're bad or they're wrong. I personally don't have portfolios here in my shop, but a lot of stuff is on Yelp. A lot of stuff's on the website.
right.
Just do some research and you might be able to find
So that's an interesting point. You don't necessarily have like a book you can hand out of your portfolio because you haven't bothered to compile that.
Some people do that, and I'm bad. I should have it, but I don't.
I get what you're saying. So, but just because someone is neglected to do that doesn't necessarily mean that they're bad piercer. A couple more real fast. Brianna McKinney. Hi, I had my gesturum pierced back in October, and I'm wondering if it's appropriate to bring the cleaning down to just once a day now, because I've been doing it twice a day and it seems to dry out my lips a lot.
Absolutely. Listen to your body. This is the best point we can possibly talk about, is if something's causing more irritation, back off and let your body heal it. That chemical, that wound wash spray isn't healing your piercing. Only you can heal it. So if it's causing more problems, back off. And if you don't have crusties on there, you don't necessarily need to do them anymore. But if you still get crusties, continue cleaning.
And one last question from Careless Curls. My 18 karat and 14 karat gold threadless ends just seem to be tarnishing after using the gold jewelry cleaner. I had to use a polish cloth to get them clean. What's the best way to keep your gold jewelry shiny and clean over time?
This is another whole video in itself, and we have some stuff in the making for jewelry cleaning. But you got to polish your jewelry. Like my eyebrow jewelry is solid barbells, and for some reason those kind of tarnish really bad on the inside. And I'll be showing this. I personally use toothpaste, a non-whitening toothpaste, put a little bit on cloth, and that can kind of polish it all the way up.
With it out of your body?
With it out of the body.
So you take it out and then in your hand polish it with toothpaste.
It doesn't take that long to get that luster back up. You got to do this once in a while. Do not do this if you have plated jewelry. You will take that plating right off the top.
Okay, it's too thin, so you'll just.
Yeah.
All right.
So, but yeah, anyways, you got to clean them once in a while. It does happen. Some people tarnish more than others. Another factor, just real quick, is sometimes the light. I know we have really, really bright lights here in the shop, and that can cause gold to tarnish a little bit faster as well. All these are factors, but keep your jewelry clean. So
gold's one of those things where you just kind of have to do the work. You have to take it out once in a while and hit it with the polishing cloth.
Yep. It's a little bit more expensive, but there's a little bit of maintenance, but it can last forever if you just keep maintaining it. Wood's the same way. If you don't, you're just going to dry out and crack. Horn and bone the same way.
Right. A nice leather jacket.
Steel
You got to
and
oil.
titanium are like the most maintenance free, and glass. So that winds it up. Another episode in the books. I want to say Happy New Year. Happy holidays to everyone. Thank you for being part of our community. It's been 3 years. So happy anniversary to us. And until next time, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit the like. Keep putting holes in your body. See you on the next video.